Well, good morning. I first came across Chris and his business shortly after we showed up at farmers markets. I became aware of your business. Dr. Norm was your coach, longtime friend of Chris. And so I'm really excited to welcome Chris to come tell you about a unique value proposition to both farmers and people who like natural.
Well, we'll clear it up. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm a seventh generation retailer, and I have nearly $400 million in fresh food sales in my career. I'm here to introduce FencyPay actually today, which is adjacent to what we're working on with some of our farm retail businesses. Just real quick about me, I get bored easily. I'm addicted to solving like really hard problems. And this list popping up is not even close to all of the things that I've done in the first half of my life. But what we were working on before, is there not a clicker or something?
I don't have.
Okay, go ahead, go to the next one then. What we were working on before FencyPay, my wife and I came middle 2020, we bought a farm, started it doing farmers markets, learned that farmers did not like doing farmers markets because they're like really hard and a lot of work, have nothing to do with farming. So we started a retail store called Farm to You in Belen, and then 2 months later opened a retail packing and shipping store next door to that store, and then opened another store in Albuquerque that did Farm to You, and then another one in Grants just this year. When I introduce ourselves, I tell everyone my wife and I are morons because no smart person would ever try to do this like in like 4 years. Next screen, please. The good thing about running all these retail businesses is that you find out all these little problems because, oh, nope, sorry. Oh, no, you're right, sorry. I got confused. So running lots of retail businesses, obviously foot traffic is king. And we were trying to solve a problem of getting more customers in the store, getting them to come back because we'd be in the news and you get this big pop, but then we didn't have a really efficient way to not only get them to come back a second time, but to track whether they're coming back a second time. And so we wish before we had been on the news that we had developed FencyPay. And so that is what we built because most loyalty programs that we saw out there, they're very siloed. The merchant is by themselves. The rewards go down over time. If you've ever done points programs, you know that over time you get less and less for the same amount of points. You have to earn more points to get whatever it is you're trying to get. Also, there's no big dopamine hits, and social media is super popular because of that. They're very good at triggering those emotions in you that you like things. And we always like to use the example of like a sandwich punch card. If you go to a sandwich shop or a cafe and they have the little punch card where you buy 10 and then you get a free one. Well, there's not a big dopamine hit when you, that little business card looks like a mile long. Has anyone ever actually completed one of those? A few hands, okay. I know lots of people who they start them, and because I've talked to business owners and I've seen it happen where, you get 2 or 3 in, but you're not getting, because you still, oh, I got more. And then the biggest problem with loyalty programs is that they don't bring new customers. You have to already have them in your store or as a customer to even give them some sort of benefit. And so next screen, please. We solved a lot of that problem. So imagine a punch card, but you get rewards right away, but you can also take that punch card and use it, punch it and redeem it at multiple merchants. Because technically a punch card with 10 holes in it is currency. It's worth something of value, but it's only worth a certain amount of value at a certain merchant once you complete it. So what if we take that same concept and we apply it to a bunch of merchants as a group? So we basically, when someone checks out, they earn 5% right away. The merchant verifies it, the customer enters it, the merchant verifies it, and they earn 5% of that total. So if it's $100, $5. What we've done differently is we draw a 5-mile radius around that merchant, and that reward is valid at any other Fency merchant in that circle. Yes. And so that is how we drive customers to other merchants. So it's a rising tide lifts all boats sort of thing. And then, so what we do, and another thing that we did differently, I don't have it up on the screen, I should have made a slide. When we were first building FencyPay, we were first going to put up a map. Obviously, that makes sense. Put up a map, here's what you earn, here's where you can spend it, here's how much you have at this merchant, because obviously as you move across town, it's going to change depending on the radius. But we were having problems engaging with customers on Facebook. About middle of July, which was exactly when we were launching the test of this in our own stores, Facebook changed their algorithm and we saw engagement drop like a rock. And we were basically having to pay ads to get our posts in front of our own followers. Because we would post something and be like, hey, here's this thing we have in stock and get it while it's here. And then people would see it a week later and be like, oh, I wish I would have seen this. It's like, well, posted it. Why is Facebook not doing their job and putting it in front of our followers? So we created our own social media feed as well, where the merchants can make posts into there, and it's only shown to customers that shop at those stores and around those stores. So a customer will log in and they will see a list of posts of only merchants in areas that they shop in, and it has their rewards balance right next to the post, so they can see how much they can spend at that merchant. And so they can post promotions if they're having problems or new stuff or running a sale. It's all there. And there's no algorithm getting in the way of a merchant reaching actual customers that have either spent in their store or spends around their store. And we've had good results so far. In our 4 stores, we run it in Belen, Manal, and Grants. And as of this morning, we're like $3 under 22,000 in gross merchandise value, just in our own business. So we haven't added any other merchants. And next screen, please. That's why we're here today, is we're looking for new retail brick and mortar merchants to start finishing this out with us and test it and make sure we're doing it right. Because we built it from the ground up within the confines of our business, testing it with our staff, seeing what works and what doesn't. But we need to translate that into other businesses. And so that's my reason coming to you today, is to kind of help identify some of those businesses. Not everyone will be well suited for it. Online e-commerce, obviously there's no brick and mortar, there's no GPS coordinate to put on it, so that won't work. And then things where you have like a recurring membership, a gym, because it's an automatic thing. In our stores, we have a membership program, and those customers are not on FencyPay because it's a recurring thing and they're already getting big discounts anyways. And so it's only retail over the counter sales. So that's why I'm here today, and I welcome your questions. Next slide. There we go. Come on, I know you guys have questions.
I'm sneaking.
All right. Well, thank you for the great presentation. Now we're going to open up to the community for questions, comments, clarification. And if you would form a line here to my left, point the microphone at your mouth, ask your question clearly, and let's make this time as productive as we can for each other.
Good morning. Miriam Ortiz-Pino with More Than Organized. I love this idea. I don't have a brick and mortar, but I used to do retail. I have like 15 years of retail experience. So have you thought about targeting like actual areas like Dietz Farm, Nob Hill, downtown, and starting with like one business and then it spins out like one at a time? I feel like every time I travel, there's information in the hotels about best shopping areas, and they're always, here's the outlet mall and here's this. And then if it's a great city, it'll have the little neighborhood areas. And I think if you started that, it's such a great idea to help people, all the area, be successful, which means sustainable businesses for everyone. Is that something you've attempted?
Yes, so the first thing that I did when I was like, okay, let's add merchants, is I literally went up and down, because our store is on Manal. So I went within 5 miles up and down Manal to businesses that I thought would be a good fit. And I walked in, I said, hey, I have a store across the street, down the street, around the corner, whatever. And we built this thing because we saw a problem. And, you know, the hard part about that is, you know, if people are interacting with customers, you can't, you know, that's the problem too. Sometimes we'd walk into a place and the owner is the only one there, and then there's 3 customers, so it's hard to pitch them that. But we left information. I hit about 40 of them just as a test to see, like, with door to door, just sending people out door to door and saying, hey, here's this thing. We're right down the street. We're probably experiencing some of the same problems. Do you want to like look into it? And, you know, either hand them a flyer, or some of them we talked to for a little bit, but we got 0 responses.
0. Oh.
No emails, no,
Okay.
nothing.
So what kind of follow-up did you do? Did you just drop in and leave your stuff and then never follow up?
Yeah, I haven't rerouted myself to do that same route again. Also, well, for one thing, I'm an introvert. I hate this. I hope to die in obscurity. And so the idea of me going back, I will do it, but it's something I have to do when I'm in the mood. But yeah, there's been little follow-up. I've even written the Albuquerque, or let's see, who had Hispano Chamber of Commerce, just to be like, hey, here's this thing. If you have people that are interested in like maybe testing this with us, crickets. So yeah, I've reached out in different ways.
Okay. I think you just need the follow-up. The riches are really in the follow-up, because we're all inundated with so much information every single day, and it's hard to vet what is legit, what could be legit, what's a scam. And I think people, especially these days, are very afraid of that. And so building that relationship. So even when you stop in a store when they're busy with their own thing, grab their card, call them late in the afternoon, early in the morning before the retail shop is actually open. See if you can schedule a time to talk, and or just drop off flyers more regularly. And I would start definitely like within your own 500-foot radius or whatever, and focus on those first, and then build out the radius.
Yeah, we're aware that how hard, you know, because, you know, we've learned from Google that marketing is not a funnel anymore, that people don't think like that. It's more of a loop back, and they need to see multiple instances of you on social media, online, maybe validation from a friend or a coworker. And so that's the point of this, is to, you know, because then, you know, if someone in this room knows one of the people that I've already dropped something off with, and then they hear, oh, hey, there's this thing,
Right.
then it's like, okay, that's 2 touches now. And so this is a part of step in trying to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we're working on to try to do that, but we also can't. I'm doing most of this on my own right now. Most of my team is working on because that's its own big monster, working in the farm stores. And so they've been great helping us and pushing FencyPay and giving us feedback, and the customers will send us screenshots of when they get errors and things. So they're doing that like in our retail stores. And so, but I don't pull them away to do anything outside of that, because that business is hard enough on its own. So right now it's just me.
Okay, I have a couple other thoughts. There's some people coming up, but yeah, I think the room could help by following you and sharing on social media that, hey, this is a really cool thing, and asking every merchant they go to. Do you guys use FencyPay?
Yep. Yeah, because, and we already have hundreds of customers on there. So that's the thing. The merchants will go where the customers are. So that's one approach I did not try when I did my first door to door, because I led with, I have a store and it's right down the street. So that I'm trying to avoid the scam thing, or this is not real, because yes, I have a retail store too. But it did not also lead with, hey, I have hundreds of customers who pay high prices for local foods and they're super, super loyal. Would you like to have some of my customers? I have not tried that approach yet.
No collaboration.
Good morning, I'm
morning.
Seamus Cavaney. It's a really interesting idea. I'm curious, have you mentioned there's a 5-mile radius. What went into the decision-making process for that 5-mile distance, and why? I'm interested in why that was chosen over having benefits across the network.
For a couple of reasons. We wanted to do a couple things. First off, we thought because I first built a version of FencyPay like in 2018. It was a little bit different. It was more credit card. It was a credit card and virtual currency hybrid. It wasn't specifically just loyalty. And originally we were going to make it adaptive, where the radius would depend on the density of merchants in a certain place. And then what we found was that you couldn't make it really small, because then if you got to like rural areas or small towns, you wouldn't have very many merchants where customers could spend their rewards. So if you went to a smaller town and you made it 1 mile, then it would be, because the idea was to create a virtual currency that's local, because the way our billing works, we charge the merchant for the reward. And that's how we made it different than the other rewards. It's not created out of thin air. And so the merchants, so when a reward is issued, so in the sample of $100 sale and $5 is generated in rewards, that merchant that issued it pays $250, 50% of it. And we hold that money in an account to back the reward. And then when another merchant or that same merchant redeems it with a customer, and they turn it back, the customer turns it back in, they pay the other half, the $250. And so we charge them that, and then we hold on to it. So now it's a fully funded reward that is fully backed by money from a merchant, and it moves around with no transaction fees after that. So once it's in the merchant's wallet, another customer comes in later that afternoon and earns rewards. They reissue it. It's geotagged to their store now, so it migrates a little bit, and then they don't pay any transaction fees on that because it's already been fully funded by the other merchants. Now, a merchant doesn't want to fund a reward and then it be used in California. And so we had to put a limit on it. And then most customers, because one thing that we learned in our store, which is really hard for a lot of small businesses to grasp, is a customer being insensitive on price. And we've been very successful at that in our stores by focusing on the customer experience. And so when you focus on that local part, when a customer knows that I'm spending this and I'm earning this, but it's only for around here, that it creates a feeling in them. And so if you remove that barrier, then that's gone. And also, deletes the purpose for the merchant to back the end, because like I said, they don't want to turn around and support it, and then it gets used on Amazon. And then, like I said, you can't use a short amount. So we picked 5 miles. It's super arbitrary. We can change it later or make it adaptive later. But this was the simplest option. And because like right now from our Manal store, it basically, once you head west, and about the time you hit the Rio Grande is when it stops. So anywhere between, Carlisle, down Manal all the way to Rio Grande is within that 5 miles of our store. Now, once you get to the west side, then our rewards are not valid there, but they could eventually migrate there.
I was also curious, you mentioned the Facebook algorithm change having a major drawback. Is the customized social media feed still hosted by Facebook?
Oh no, we built that on our own. We call it the Plaza. It's when a customer logs in to the FencyPay website, they're automatically redirected to the Plaza, not their dashboard. So we're basically just throwing them into that feed, and they're going to see a chronological order of posts from merchants that are in their affinity area.
That sounds like it could be a very good benefit to draw people to join the network as well. Because it helps to get rid of a lot of the clutter that people are faced by often. I was also curious, as one last question, it sounds like the focus is generally on brick and mortar merchants widely. Has there been consideration to focus on specific sectors, for instance, starting with the farms and food and expanding to other agricultural ventures?
No, being a 7th generation retailer, we're very aware of the constraints that a in-person, you know, even if it's not a, you know, what you think of as a large brick and mortar retail, you know, you think of like a massage therapist who rents a little office and shares it with 3 other people. And, you know, one's a psychiatrist and another one, you know, does, you know, salt therapy or something. They all share this little office, but they're always doing their work there. I mean, and that is even a potential customer because they're always doing something in person at that place. And so we wanted to appeal to that, those people who have that extra cost of having to rent a space, lease a space, get people to come into their door in their store. The foot traffic was the big thing, is getting people to know where you are. One of the unique benefits, when I put up the post, the page with all the things that we did, you know, we have 2 retail stores in 2 different industries right next door to each other. And one of the things that really surprised me was how oblivious consumers are to things right next to them. Because when we put in that packing and shipping store 2 months afterwards, yes, we were getting free traffic in our grocery stores from Amazon returns, UPS, FedEx, because they were sending people to, because we're the only people in Belen that do that service. And so we were getting free customers, and that's kind of the reason we jumped in and did, open 2 different stores. But on the flip side of that, the number of people who come into either one of those stores and 2 years later say, oh, I didn't know that was there, when they've been there the whole time, it's a huge number. It's very surprising. And then we see it even in our Manal stores, like, because we get people that come in and go, oh, I go to the vet down the street and I keep seeing your sign and I finally came in after a year of driving by. But then we'll mention another business and they'll be like, where's that? And we're like, oh, well, it's 2 doors down. And so that was another problem we were trying to solve, and just we want to focus on all those people that are taking that extra step of putting a business in a place that is permanent, fixed, and sometimes not cheap, and trying to get people in the door.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello,
Good morning.
how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? My name is Ashley Dalton, and I just had a couple questions for you. Oh, yeah, as a fellow introvert, I feel your pain.
Oh, I'm boisterous.
Yes. So I guess my first question, just was kind of around how it works. So if you have a 5-mile radius, like let's say in Albuquerque, like around the Manal area and like branching outward, and then you have something in Belen, let's say somebody shops in Belen and then also like shops in Albuquerque like a day later. So does that customer have access to both of these areas, and for how long? Is that like a lifetime situation, or how does that work when businesses are sort of scattered around the New Mexico area? And like how would you kind of explain that to customers who are participating?
So yes, so since we do have a store in Grants, 2 stores in Belen and 1 in Manal, we've been testing this out. And so yes, Belen and the Manal stores are not 5 miles from each other. So when someone earns something in Belen, it's valid at our 2 stores next door to each other because they're so close. They come to Albuquerque, it says 0. And actually it's not even shown. So like a customer that only shops in Belen, if they log into the plaza, they don't see our Manal store posts. They don't see the Grant store posts. They're only seeing the posts of places they currently shop. Now, once they come up here and they make a purchase at a FencyPay, and they're basically creating a new circle for themselves. And then they'll start seeing those merchants in their radius on the plaza. So they're not going to see that. Because we have customers that do shop in both of our stores. I haven't gone through to see how many of them have earned rewards at both stores. But yeah, that was the point, is that they do not, it doesn't exist. So, you know, in theory, look 10 years from now, if FencyPay is across the country, it's possible for a reward to be earned in Albuquerque and then end up in New York City at some point. But it can only do that 5 miles at a time. You would have to spend it in the East Mountains and then get to Moriarty and then
They have to be connecting.
yeah, because they would have to move from consumer to merchant and then to another consumer to another merchant, as opposed to just being widely available everywhere.
Okay. Thank Thank you. I'm also curious, so the Plaza, where is that an app or where is that hosted? Is that, so that's an app or?
It's all web-based right now. We tried to make it stupid simple. We improved our workflow so we can literally sign up a merchant in like 2 minutes. It'll generate the sign that put on the counter with the QR code and their name of their business. If they have a printer in their store, they can like accept a customer in minutes on FencyPay. We provide the signage, so our packing store in Belen also does some printing and laminating, things like that. So we will provide the signage to them. That's the longest part of the process. And so it's all web-based right now. The customer just walks up, scans a QR code. It has them, if they're not logged in, create the account, log in, and they enter the amount that they just did. It already knows the merchant they're at because of the code, and then a receipt number or invoice number or something like that. It gets submitted to the merchant. The merchant sees it in their dashboard, and they're supposed to validate it. They look against their records and say, yep, that's the amount, that's the date, and that is the receipt number or the number. And our staff tries to do that instantly, like, because our staff have access to like laptops and stuff in the stores. And so the customer will literally have the reward sometimes in minutes. We try to encourage, but we train them. We're like, okay, if you don't do it, like, make sure you do it by the end of the day. We're thinking of implementing like 24 hours. We're going to automate it, but then we want to make sure the merchants are well trained, because they have to realize the consequences of that, because we've seen customers enter in $8,400 instead of $84, not putting the decimal. They do 8400 and then it goes in. But if the merchant clicks on approve, then we'll be like, okay, we believe you. And then you're gonna get 5% of $8,400 in that customer's wallet, and not 5% of $84. That's actually a real thing that happened. One of our staff clicked on approve there, because we used to have a quick approve button. And we took that away and we went to a details page instead, because our staff started just being in a hurry and they just click on, oh yeah, approve. And they didn't even look that it said $8,400. We've never had an $8,400 grocery sale. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So it sounds like the service level agreements with the actual merchants that's important, just so that, customers don't have those rewards like lingering and not credited to their account. I guess I guess I have two more questions. In terms of the touch points that you mentioned with Facebook, I think I've heard that around 6 touch points is ideal if you're trying to acquire, participants or customers or whatever that is. So just thinking through additional touch points that they may be able to encounter. And then I think my final question is thinking through, getting merchants to participate. Like, I think I'm not totally clear on the incentive for the merchants to participate. Of course, they might acquire new customers through this program, but they also might have dollars that would have gone to them, like going to potentially their competitors, like via the shared pool of rewards. So I guess, I'm just curious, like how you could, present that to them that highlights their incentive rather than so much the customer incentive, which is also important. But if you want to get them to participate, it's like what is in it for them, kind of a thing.
Sure, it's totally possible that someone could earn rewards at your store and then go spend them at a competitor, but that's true with their regular dollars anyways. The customer's going to make that choice, whether you're in their loyalty program or not. Also, it works the other way. Your competitors could also be giving money to their customers, but you're better at it and you eventually get them. So it's still the same capitalism that we already have, where the better business should get the better customer. And so as long as you're doing a good job running your business, then that should even out, because the normal economic dynamics are still at play. And then you had another, I feel like there's something else there you asked.
It's more rhetorical around the touch
Yeah.
points. Like,
Oh yeah, so there's a lot of ways we can increase touch points. Right now, we're pretty basic with it, because we want to get other merchants on board before we aggressively push customers to certain things. So right now, they get emails basically with updates. So 3 days after they make a purchase and earn some rewards, we remind them, hey, thanks for shopping at this merchant. You earned so-and-so the other day, you spent this much. Here's a link to the plaza, go check out places where you can use it. And so that sends them back to the plaza to maybe see some recent posts from other merchants or that merchants or something else. So right now it's pretty basic. And then if someone hasn't had any activity in a while, we're automatically sending them an email Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, which is the most optimal time to send an email to a consumer. Just stating like, hey, you haven't shopped in a while, you have this much money in your account, and here's where you can spend it if you click here on the plaza and see what's available where.
Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good morning. I'm Danielle with Conscious Crossroads End of Life Services. Thank you for your presentation. I think this is a great idea. As you were answering some other questions and this popped up for me, but I feel like it may be a missed opportunity where if your Berlin customers can't see that you have an Albuquerque store, right? Like maybe you keep that within a certain distance, right? But say I've got loved ones that live in Berlin and now all of a sudden I'm up here visiting in Albuquerque and I love your store and I don't know that you have one here, right? You're missing out on people too. So I think there's missed opportunity there with not seeing nearby local businesses. And another comment was when I saw the newsletter and I saw FencyPay was going to be on there, I popped on your website and then realized it was more of a loyalty rewards program than a payment service. And I think that there's so many payment services out there right now. There's Google Pay, there's Apple Pay, there's Pay with Your Palm, right? Like there's Venmo, there's so much that merchants are being bombarded with, being tried to be sold something else that, and I get, right, Fency, it's geofencing, like I get it, but like so many people don't even know what that is or understand that, and pay isn't even completely accurate to me, that you may grab more people if it was something like neighborhood loyalty rewards, local loyal rewards, something that tells us that this is keeping things local and we're getting rewarded for our participation, as opposed to it's one more thing asking us to pay, right, as a merchant.
Yeah, we did that because it is, or it will be.
Okay.
So our big goal is not this. Our big goal is getting into point of sale and credit card processing. Because our original design of FencyPay was to shift merchants away from having to use credit cards and pay fees. So what happens is once you can control once you're their merchant account and you're their point of sale provider and you're their loyalty provider, then you can do a bunch of things. But what the point is, and that's why we geographically fence the rewards, is that they build up over time. So let's imagine we launched FencyPay and we only did it in 5 miles. We only put in merchants, that's all, just this one dot on the middle of a map. And 10 years later, there's millions of dollars in Fency rewards floating around, and being part of the point of sale system. And what we designed originally was we would know the customer, because the customers would load their credit cards in our app. So we would know their credit cards. And if they went to a merchant that happened to be a Fency merchant, but they didn't know, and they just swiped their regular credit card, we can recognize them and we would front run the credit card, and then if they had enough FencyPay rewards in their account for that merchant, we would pay with that instead and not run the credit card. So then the merchant gets the money another way with no transaction fees because we front run the credit card. And then over time that builds up. So you could have all of these merchants with all of these Fency, we call them Fency coins is what we call them, in this 5 mile circle. And there's so many of them that the customers aren't actually running their credit cards anymore. It's all this virtual currency that's moving around with no transaction fees for just a small monthly payment from the merchant. And they don't have to pay those fees to credit cards anymore.
Okay.
And then if it's so big, you could pay your employees with it. You could, if your landlord would accept it, you could pay that. So there's an entire billing system that you could have on the back end as well, where you're using this virtual local neighborhood currency that you all built up on your own, and it doesn't cost you any transaction fees every time someone uses it.
That's a lot bigger
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, guys, we have about, I'm gonna call it 3 minutes left for questions. So we're gonna go rapid fire here. So if you have a quick question, come on up. If you have a longer question, maybe we can ask those questions after the meeting.
I don't know if I'm middle on that. Michael McDonald, I'm retired and been helping out here. Some of your stuff, the finances just seem a little bit, okay, like I think about JJ with the farmers markets and he's got these multiples in your business and his loyal person who goes to the Winrock thing and then the rail yards might not be able to get a credit because he bought the creamer here instead of there. I also think about like, kind of like the buildup of value or whatever dollars. And I think about like if I have a Subway card and I lose it, Subway doesn't like lose out, right? So there's a certain amount of loss, like, which is somewhat good. It changes the value that they can do. But here you have kind of a different form of that. And I'm not sure if I was a company that I would want to be putting my money in up front for things that might never result in somebody coming back. That might be a problem. And then, well, and then the third one, third one was you're kind of starting to, your vision is starting to set yourself up as a bank. And I'm wondering if you're going to run into any SEC kinds of issues. So it's the thinking that went through from the perspective. Okay, so the perspective of the merchant's value proposition and cost.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure we're close to our 3 minutes, but I can ramble through really fast. Yes, there's lots of regulatory that goes up with that. You have to do KYC, you have to be a payments facilitator, you have to work directly with the associations, a credit card, MasterCard, Visa, American Express. You're not, you're in their club. It's $1 million to $2 million to just do that, to become a payment facilitator and to be able to front run people's credit cards and be able to look into the network and be like, oh, I recognize that credit card and I'm going to not process it. To get to that level, yes, it's insane. It's millions of dollars that you have to spend to do it. Yes, a farmer who is bouncing around because we used to do 7 markets a week before we had the retail store. And yes, like in our current iteration of the software right now, they would have to, yes, pay the $19 a month for each location that they sell at. So they have a different code that applies that location so we can apply the geo coordinates to it. There's just no way around that. So yes, it is not well suited. Now, of course, as we know, farmers markets, 80 to 90% of farmers at farmers markets aren't actually making a lot of money. 2 or 3 are doing really well. So maybe those 2 or 3 will do that, pay the $19 a month for each of those locations, but your other smaller farmers not. We're totally aware of that. But like I said, this is to focus on the brick and mortar side of someone putting in that investment to that established place and making sure that they're able to get people to come in the door.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So I don't know if you're familiar with satellite coffee shops, but I go there 5 times a week. They have the most effective loyalty program I've ever seen. And I asked the manager of the satellite near me, what percentage of their sales go through the loyalty program? I was expecting 10%. It's over 70%. Also Flying Star, probably not 75, 72. Albuquerque has a lot of independent coffee shops, over 50 of them, over 50 independent breweries, and over 200 independent weed shops. I would think those would be primary targets for what you're doing. Also, I'm sure you know this, but the value of a network grows by the square of the members, right? So in my opinion, those 3 where you have a lot of activity in Albuquerque would be a good place to focus, those 3.
Yeah, we're really I haven't done any dispensaries yet. It seemed half the, because there's one right next to our store and I never see people there and I'm like, how's this place open? What else are you guys doing? But yeah, it's the breweries and things like that. And yes, we're, Satellite and Flying Star. Breakage. The guy that was talking about when people use a reward, Subway, like if you do 3 clicks, they get 3 sales, but then you lose the card. That's called breakage in the loyalty program. And so it's something that you account for in your finances to, because they get to keep that money. But that's the problem for the small retailer. Your one location person does not have that advantage that a big multinational or even a Flying Star and Satellite, those are owned by the same people. So they have all these locations. And so, yes, the rewards are super valuable because they have so many locations that their top line is so high that the breakage is actually a benefit for them. They make money on people not able to use the rewards. A small business can't do that. The economies of scale just aren't there. And so that's why when we do it as a group together, even if you're competitors, it works in the long run because the customer gets all the value and it doesn't matter where they're at. They just know that if they go to these places that they're getting value. And for a merchant, that's all you want is a customer that feels like they're feeling good when they're in your store. And if this is the first time in their store, then a FencyPay, if they're using that reward because they earned it somewhere else, but they're like, oh, I've never been to this bookstore, but I have $20 in rewards. So I'm going to try this new place. And so they automatically already feel a little bit better about going there, and you haven't even served them as a customer yet. And that's something that most programs can't generate.
Well, Chris, thank you for your presentation today. As a presenter, we want to award you with your 1 million cups tumbler. We have 2 questions for you. First, red or green?
Christmas.
Cheater.
I have a hard time deciding.
All right. And then the second question, what can this community do for you today?
Honestly, just talk to people that that kind of fit our profile, even if you're not even sure if it's them, just, put the bug in their ear. We have a website, FencyPay has a social media page on Facebook. So we're out there and able to be found. We have a full support website with knowledge-based articles and a way to submit help tickets and things like that for both sales and tech support. So even if you think someone may not be a fit, send them our way, FencyPay.com. And we can, because like I said, we're retailers too, so we're not trying to scam anybody. And they can poke holes in it all day because that's kind of how we get better is people poking holes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Jay.
Right. Let's move on to announcements.